Welcome to the Rampant Discourse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Paul Essen.
I'm Andrew O.
I'm Travis Hudson.
And Travis, what are we doing today?
We're going to drink our third beer from the Brewer's Advent Calendar 2021, which is from Kylea. I have not tried to pronounce it yet. I'm trying to pronounce it today, but Kalea is the company that produces it. They they get cans of beer from small local German and Austrian breweries, and we've already done two, so now we're on to number three because that's what comes after two.
Good counting.
So
It's not directly in the right spot, so it's like an advent calendar is supposed to be out of order, so you can't just make an easy mark.
that totally confused me. The first two cans, I was like, wait, one? Why is one not up here? And where's two? I
My
forgot to
wife and I
mention
had
that.
this disagreement. Our advent calendars are supposed to be out of order?
I think that was traditional. We talked about this, yesterday, but they've only been around for like 100 years. So, but yeah, they're out of order traditionally.
Oh, why?
I think it's because they want you to slow down and try to look for it and enjoy it. So, okay, so that is the Alms Hell.
Alms
Yay.
Hell. That's quite the combination of words there.
Yeah. It is a little ironic that for an advent calendar, we have such an obsession with hell.
Well, as we were discussing previously, hell here just means light. This is our light beer, not in the sense of a light beer and low calories, but light in terms of color from traditional beers, which are going to be darker and heavier. In fact, this is a light lager, and which gets me to something that I wanted to talk about with regarding beer as well, which is that not only do you have the light versus dark distinction, you have two main distinctions in beers. You have ales and lagers. So far, we've been drinking lagers. This is another lager. But an ale is another different type of beer that we'll hopefully get to later on. Lagers are brewed colder using a different species of yeast. And that was something else to answer a question that Paul had earlier. Uh, you know, how can you have three ingredients turn into so many different types of beers? Well, you use different yeast to eat the sugar and get your fermentation to happen, and you get a brand new beer type. And as you can see, yet another very pale looking yellowish beer, but a lot crisper than our Hefeweizen yesterday.
So
You can see through this one.
I have a question. I should have interrupted you because you can't really tell anymore. There was a nice little strip of bubbles on my glass before. Am I showing off how dirty my glassware is?
I don't know what that means. I don't
Hmm.
think it's necessarily that your glasses are dirty. Maybe it is. Um,
I'm just curious what the physics is behind bubbles sticking to the side of a glass.
Prost.
Prost.
Come by.
I guess I really need to learn cheers in a third language, don't I?
The third language could be English.
Well, that was a mistake.
I thought you were trying to show us something, so I wasn't
Yeah,
saying anything.
I was just looking for an empty spot on my desk to put the beer down.
right in front of the camera.
I briefly forgot this is the thing we were doing. I was just enjoying the beer.
You've had too much already.
So following up on some of our discussion from yesterday as well, we have asked about the etymology of Tiamat and Bahamut. So I was looking for those guys. And I was right, Tiamat is the dragon goddess, and in fact she was originally the Babylonian sea goddess, who was eventually killed by the great hero god, man god, Marduk, and the enemy Elish, who tells that whole story. And she was basically one of the two primordial gods of the Babylonian religion. And she did show up as a dragon goddess in Dungeons and Dragons, like I remember her from. Bahamut was originally Hebrew. Um, Behemoth, they're the same. Bahamut is the Arabic version, so they took the word and made it their own. And basically, this is a creature that lives under the earth and is a combination of the world snake and Atlas that holds up the world. But the depiction was basically like a huge bull. So if you think about the elephants that carry the world on the back of Great Alpine, the elephants are the Bahamuts. And the question about the frequency of the name Sora, Sora is a fairly common, although I couldn't tell how common, unisex Japanese given name, but it's only feminine in Korean. And it does seem to be more feminine, at least in the United States. It's given to both sexes in the United States, but it's about 85% feminine in the United States, and still fairly rare, but climbing in popularity.
Because
So
of
that's
Kingdom Hearts.
that's interesting about all the actual background. But what video games Did we ever get a conclusion on that? Bahamut was Final Fantasy. Was Tiamat also Final Fantasy?
Tiamat was one of the four thieves in Final Fantasy.
The first Final Fantasy?
First Final Fantasy.
Very,
That's what I thought I remembered. Okay.
was Bahamut one of the other ones?
I don't remember. I know Bahamut is frequently one of the espers or summons.
Summons, right.
So I also want to clarify. I made a mistake. I said that Sora was the name of the Dragon Quest IV or Dragon Warrior IV villain. That is incorrect. His name is Sorrow or Pissarro. And I had the whole story slightly wrong, which I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt on this one because, again, I played it like 20 years ago.
Wait,
like
wasn't this your like favorite in Generation 3 role-playing game though?
Yeah, it was. And I still love it, but I forgot so much of the story. It's not like I've played it against. It's a long game, right? It's a tremendously huge and great RPG, but I forgot some of the details. I remember dragons and illicit romances and similar things and half-breeds. So falls in love with an elf who sheds ruby tears, and of course all the humans are like, yeah, all we gotta do is make the elf cry and we're rich! Because humans, right? And so he hates humans, and therefore he wants to kill us all.
That's gotta hurt to cry rubies.
Probably not great.
Paul just drinks his beer.
That's my reaction to most of your Final Fantasy talk. I'll be honest.
Well, I did find out that I am no longer good at first-person shooters, surprisingly. But
that's sarcasm, correct?
I feel like I was better at the retro ones because I played I just got Project Warlock.
Okay.
Which is like supposed to be like a, you know how they have all the retro indie games that are kind of like they look like they're 8-bit or 16-bit. This is supposed to look like the equivalent of maybe the likes of like Hexen, not quite Doom. But I think the thing I'm learning is Doom was easier because you didn't have to aim up and down.
Yeah.
Once you add that style of run and gun, but then you also have to move up and down instead of the bullets just tracking. I'm like running around looking at the ceiling. I'm looking at the floor. Like it just becomes a lot harder. It took me probably 2 hours to beat the first level.
Wow.
And then I watched like a Let's Play or something, and the guy's like just talking casually as he goes through the entire level and doesn't die. I'm like, yeah, I'm not good.
As someone who's done a fair amount of video game streaming, I can tell you that being able to play a game well is a completely different skill set from being able to play a game well while streaming. You can know the game really, really well and still screw it up because it requires so much more brain processing power than you think. In order to stream a game well and actually be, talking about other things at the same time and interacting with your chat, it's hard, and I have a lot of respect for people who can do it well. I don't do it well. I do it, but I don't do it well.
Especially since this guy it was his first time playing, because it was like, kind of the fumbling of like, all right, what does this button do? Oh, how does this work? Oh, that does that. And you're like, oh, I can have an upgrade point, but I can't use it. And I'm like, oh, good. Well, at least I wasn't the only one confused on how the whole leveling system in this game works, because it's not exactly clear. But I mean, that was a cool thing that Doom didn't have, obviously. There was no leveling. Not even Hexen had leveling. But.
So I feel like I need to get a dig in somehow about Andrew talking about playing a video game and talking at the same time and not doing it well. Some kind of joke around, like, do you think you just, when you're just talking by yourself, do you think you do it well? Yeah.
Because I think I'm pretty good talker for the most part. Not so much when you're drinking. Like, drinking and talking at the same time is also hard. But.
I was going to say, we've recorded some podcasts together, and I'm on the fence on the, talking well, just not even playing a video game.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I accept your criticism, and I will raise you one of my own eventually, perhaps.
Unlikely.
So tonight's beer is 5.2% alcohol by volume, and talked about the species of yeasts. Ales and lagers now go with different species, but they ferment on different sides. So lagers ferment from the bottom up, and ales from the top down. But I don't think that's very relevant.
But so is this is still a lager, though, right? We have not had an ale.
Correct. We have drunk
2 Hell's lagers and a Hefeweizen.
Correct.
Okay. So is Alms the brewery? I can't see the.
Alms is the name of the beer. It's an Alms beer, Hell style, white beer. Lager. By the brewery is Private Brewer H. Jäger.
Okay, now I see it. No information on them. Not there's no proclamation of how old they are, so they might
Very,
not be as
very
old as the
newer.
other ones.
I didn't get a lot of information about these folks. Unfortunately, I spent more of my time on this bit of research going down the lager versus ale distinction. I should have spent a little more time on the brewery.
I do have to respect their. It's not quite rampant, but there you go. It's kind of a in the spirit of our logo.
It's a nice hind.
He has a cute butt.
What'd I do?
I was going to walk into that one.
So what do we think of the beer right now? I feel like it's a slightly inferior version of that first Hell beer that we drank.
Yes.
It's
Halfway through, that's my opinion so far.
not quite as aromatic, not quite as crisp and refreshing in my mind. It's perfectly non-offensive, but the first beer was less offensive.
Yeah, we talked about how that one was the angry, for whatever reason, or grumpy, and it sort of had a little bit more to it to start off with.
Grumpy leprechaun.
This one is very natural, right? It's like super filtered. I don't know that they actually did filter it, but it feels like it's been filtered.
It's also for some reason when I have super crisp, especially like a Hell's Lager like that, I kind of expect a little bit more carbonation. I don't know if that's just something they do sometimes or if it's a part of the brewing process that happens, but this one's not as fizzy as day one was, and I kind of like that in a lager to be that little bit of extra fizz. I mean, you watch a Budweiser ad, not like Budweiser's the be all end all of beer, right? But I mean, that's their big thing is always the suds coming over the side.
People want their beers to be sudsy. They want to get that cut. I had a point I wanted to make, and I've lost it entirely. So there you go, Paul. Another point for you, not being able to talk.
There's that great talking ability that you're talking about. Yeah.
So one thing I do note is like normally I prefer a bigger. Well, speaking of stuff, beers with lots of head, I usually use like a Guinness glass to pour pints because then I can actually pour the whole thing and have room at the top, so I'm not having to like pour multiple times.
Is that a shot at me with my multiple pours and my tiny little.
No, I'm doing it
This
to
is normally a big glass, but these are big
a,
cans.
These are
a
big
plus
cans.
a plus to Andrew's Stein over there.
Woo! You can't see when I do that, but yeah, I have a 4 liter Stein here, so.
No, it just shows the downside of like these are pints. Well, right? They're 500 ml. Yeah, one pint.
I don't
Wait,
understand your metric system.
1.9 ounces. Because pints
no
are
point nine. 0.9 ounces.
9 ounces, okay, yeah. Also, this is an American pint, I think, not a British pint, so that'd be 16 ounces versus 20 yeah, 16 ounces versus the 20-ounce pint that you get in the UK.
Okay. Well, so either way, like at least all I have is whatever I can buy glassware wise and can wise in America. Is you can't really pour a whole pint can into a pint glass because
It will overflow.
the liquid would fill the whole thing, but that leaves no room for the head. So that's why I usually like my Guinness glass is so to your point, the Guinness glass is probably 20 ounces then, because it's designed to have an English pint in it probably then. So there's 4 ounces of room in it.
Sounds about right. And we're used to our cans being 12 ounces, right? So this is 16-ish ounces. So it's a quarter, a third more. It's a fairly significant increase in size.
So it's interesting though, because mass market beer in America is 12 ounces. Most craft breweries, like especially local ones, are all 16 ounce. It's actually like a special deal when they do make something in 12-ounce cans, and it usually winds up being something like a lager where you're supposed to drink 2 or 3 of them
A
honestly.
six
'Cause they're like,
pack.
yeah.
Are you really supposed to drink 2 or 3 of them?
When these breweries are producing like 13% imperial stouts, they'll be like, yeah, here's a 5% beer. You're gonna have to catch up. I mean, most IPAs and everything are going to be closer to 8%, right? So a 5% doesn't hit you as hard.
No. And everything we've had has been about that 5%. We had 4.9, 4.7, 5.2, all in that range, right? So we're getting some alcoholic beverages, certainly. but not super heavy ones, which makes a lot of sense because of what we've drunk so far.
And interestingly, this afternoon we had a guest over, and the wine they brought was a dessert wine, but it was also low alcohol. So it was wine that was only like 5.5%.
Wow.
Wine is usually minimum, you know, 10, 12%. So it was, it tasted good. It was sweet because it was a dessert wine. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder if I feel like whenever you have a lower proof wine like that, it's probably gonna be more sweet for whatever reason. I'm not
yeah,
sure if
I'm
there's
curious.
science behind that.
I'm also curious, like, what they do differently to brew it. Not brew it. You don't really brew wine, right? To make wine lower alcohol.
You can probably
You,
ferment it for less time because you're still having the whole process of fermentation is still the yeast, so you're eating more sugar, and if there's more sugar left, then the yeast didn't have as much time to eat it or ate less of it, and so you're going to have less alcohol as well. There's why you have that correlation between sweeter and lower alcohol. But you're going to have it happen most frequently when it's been fermented for less time, I think.
Yeah, it was also an odd because of, and I know we're drinking beer and now I'm talking about wine, but it was a Moscato, and I don't know if you guys are too familiar. Moscato is usually white,
Mm-hmm.
and this one was red, or
Wow.
at least it was not a rosé. Yeah, and I asked my wife about it, and she said like they must have just left more of the grape in or something.
well, yeah, I mean, typically a red means you left the skins in, I believe. No, maybe.
I
I
thought it
don't know.
was
No one's
red
correcting me,
grapes
so
versus, I thought it
I'm
was
gonna go
red
boldly
grapes
with it.
versus white grapes.
I thought it had to do with leaving more of the skin in as well. Am
Both
I
of those
completely
things
off
could be
base
true.
there?
I, mean,
Andrew's.
I think that there are specific grapes that are, specifically white wine grapes, and I would have
Mm.
expected the Moscato to be made from that in general. But I'm sure that the one of the things that's always interested me about wine grapes is just how tiny they are, right? Compare them to the grapes we get
Mhm.
at the grocery store, which are, mass produced to be huge. Those are they're the size of a grape. I don't know what to compare them to, right? But wine grapes are tiny. Like,
What's interesting, I had a coworker who had some land in West Virginia, and one day he said they were wild grapes that were growing on his land, or maybe he was growing them, I don't know. And they were tiny, and I think he even had seeds in them too, right? Because they were wild grapes. And he's like, "Do you want to try one?" I'm like, "Sure, that sounds great." And I was struck by the intensity of the flavor.
yeah.
It tasted like grape juice, and you don't realize it, but grape juice does not taste at all like the grapes that we eat. The grapes that we eat taste like giant sweet balls of like water, right? Like this, there's not actually a lot of grape taste to it. But eating these grapes is like, wow, it feels like I'm eating like a grape gusher or something like that, right? Like an artificially grape flavored thing. It was very intensely grape flavored. So yeah, I guess it's just a point towards the whole like how humans have evolved our fruit. Evolved's the wrong word.
We have
We've
genetically selected our fruit for a
thank
variety
you.
of things, which makes very little sense sometimes. Like, our bananas are crazy, right?
How are they crazy?
Well, basically, there's one banana tree at this point.
Oh, right. So they're all the same strain, is what you're referring
Not
to.
even all the strains, the same strain. They've all been grafted in such a way that it's literally the same plant.
Right. And well, and the problem with that, presumably, is that if there's like some sort of like disease that strikes that plant, we've lost bananas.
Yeah, bananas are
Right.
incredibly fragile right now.
It also doesn't. Don't they not? I actually have no idea how they possibly know this, but like they don't taste like bananas did 100 or 200 years ago, right? I think.
Not even close, yeah. Again, I'm not entirely. We weren't alive 100, 200 years ago, but we know what bananas taste like now, and we know what the banana formulation was in those other bananas because there are other things that are like bananas that were around then, and they are nothing like our current bananas.
Yeah, I think I read something on the internet once, which is always dubious about whether it's true or not. But it
You
was
can't
something along the
always believe what
lines
you
of
read on the internet, says Abraham Lincoln.
exactly. But it was something along the lines of that, like hundreds of years ago, all of the foods that we eat now probably were like a lot less sweet, a lot more bitter, a lot larger seeds. Like it was comparing, like, this is what a banana looks like now. It's like 99% like deliciousness inside of the peel. And before it was just like massive seeds with tiny bits of like possibly edible, you know, stuff around it, or watermelons or tomatoes or whatever. Like we've basically selected them to be like more and more of the delicious fleshy stuff that we eat, and less of the seeds and protective covering and other stuff that we don't like. And so we don't know how good we have it in terms of like the proportion of deliciousness to inedibleness.
It does some good things for us in that we have a lot more food available for a lower price, but we miss out on flavor, perhaps. And yes, it's not as bitter, it's sweeter. You think we're sucking for flavor, but look at the grapes as an example. Back to the grapes.
Mhm.
Would you rather have a very flavorful grape, but a smaller one, or supermarket mush?
I don't know. When you put it like that, I might go with the supermarket mush. The branding there is just
The brand is
chef's
fantastic.
kiss. Yes. I mean, grape mush. Am I the last one to finish here?
No,
Nah,
I finished mine.
I
You
still
guys
got
are still
some.
going.
Well,
So also,
if history's any indication, Travis is gonna love this beer because the last time it took him a long time to finish. He's like, "This is thumbs up, great."
I was savoring all that toasty wheat bread goodness.
Not even all that toasty, honestly. Would have been better if it was toastier.
Toasty.
There's
No.
apparently a thing where you can have smoked beers, but I actually don't know what goes in. I guess maybe they smoke the hops or something. But oh, Andrew's
Okay.
writing it.
Yep.
Andrew's writing it down to look it up.
They take a cigarette and they dab the ashes into the beer beforehand. So
I've seen plenty of people do that, but usually on accident.
wait. Plenty of people do that.
Yes, a lot of people that I know who are smokers would be smoking and drinking,
Oh,
and so
okay.
they could use one of their old beer cans as an
Oh,
ashtray,
Okay.
and then they just lost track which one they were doing, so they ash into their new beer.
I thought you were talking about like a brewer being like, I'm just gonna tap a little cigarette here, a little
No,
cigarette
no, no.
there. I'm like,
This is your typical American just not paying enough attention and being wealthy enough that it's not that big a deal. It's like, oh, I roasted a beer. I'll crack open another one because I can.
yeah, someone's kind of. I can't even say racist because American's not a race. Someone's nationalist,
anti-national.
anti-nationalist. Yeah.
One about getting stuff in your beer. Maybe I shared this with you guys before, maybe on the podcast, but there's like some breweries where you can bring your dogs in, and some people don't like that because they're like, oh, I'm gonna get dog hair in my beer. And I always think, have you looked at all the head brewers for all these breweries? They all have like lumberjack beards. If you don't think there's beard hair in your beer, like you're kidding yourself.
At some point, probably, yeah. But they'll probably filter it out.
Spoken like the person who has a bunch of like pets in their household. Because I'm like, yeah, no, I can understand not wanting dogs around since I don't have any pets of my own. And as some of you may know, I'm intensely allergic to certain types of animals,
Including humans.
especially humans. All right, I have finished.
But special thought.
We're just rolling in like the '90s quotes here, alienating all of our audience that aren't like 40 and up.
Are you too young to drink? You will not enjoy this podcast at all.
Are you too young to get a senior citizens discount? Get the blue plate special?
Well, but hold on. But Paul was saying we were making 90s references. You realize people are turning 21 who were born in 2000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we were like starting college, people were like, yeah, being born there now turning 21.
That's a thing that is real. And I try not to think about that too much. So thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Death comes for us all.
Good
All
cut.
right.
Death comes up for us all, Udasaki.
I
But for
finished
you,
my
it'll be.
beer.
Damn it! I think Andrew beat me to it. I was talking over him, but I'm pretty sure he said it'll be without honor.
Are we ready to make a verdict?
Yeah, is anything else to say, or are we just giving the gladiator style Joaquin Phoenix thumbs up or thumbs down?
The general consensus is that it's another light lager, which is similar to our first beer. You two seem to have preferred the first beer to this one, but everyone gave the first beer a thumbs up, so it's in that direction. It looks like.
All right. So should we start it? Countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Oh,
Oh,
all right.
interesting.
Okay. You two say it's not quite good enough. The first one was fine. The second one doesn't do enough for you. I like this one just fine. Doesn't stand out any more or any less than the grumpy beer, but this is very, very much something that you'd enjoy. It's a little odd having it in December. It's part of an advent calendar because this is more what I would expect out of a summer beer. But if you have a hot day, you're mowing the lawn, this is a really nice thing to knock back.
So we should have this during Lent, is what you're saying.
That's spring, so no.
Well, closer to summer. Closer to summer than December.
The thing is, if you're wandering the desert for 40 days, then this would be a good beer to have after that, right?
Yes, that is true.
There you go.
Yesterday's would be even better, though. For the
Mm,
calories, not for the
okay,
Christmas.
okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest. I actually made my decision like as I was counting down from like 2 to 1 there. And this might go a little bit towards like grading philosophy. Um, I'm kind of judging these relative to each other.
You kind of
And
have to,
so,
right?
right, like I mean, obviously, I wouldn't mind drinking this. If I got served this at a bar, I'd be like, okay, great, like it's fine. It's perfectly cromulent beer. But I guess the first one, same style, the Hell's Lager or whatever it is, just was a little bit better. And so relative to that, this was worse. And so even though I liked it well enough, it seemed below average to me in terms of this advent calendar thus far. Obviously, if I keep giving thumbs downs, at some point I'll maybe need to change that curve a little bit and start giving more thumbs up. But that was my rationale there. Again, it's perfectly not offensive. I would be perfectly happy being served this at any bar, baseball game, whatever. Or hell, if I got another advent calendar and one of these came again, I wouldn't turn my nose up at it. But just was not one of my favorites so far out of three.
Right. Yeah, and that's the hard thing is like, yeah, I'm trying to do it maybe a little relative, but at the start here, we kind of have to do relative to other beers we've already had because we only have a sample size of three, and we really only can compare it directly to the first one. But so compared to the first one, I like that one better. This is thumbs down, and thumbs down doesn't have to mean, yeah, it's terrible. It just means we're gonna recommend something else over this one.
Hold your thumbs down, guys. You like the other one better?
Correct.
So say thumbs down, it's thumbs down.
All right. Well, anything else to say, or should we wrap this episode up?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on day 4. Can't stop the discourse.